the question that's going to be asked, I think, in this Aquarian age is, who has supreme power over you? Will be a question everybody should be asking themselves, or will be posed through the next 2,500 years to ask. You know, because what is the journey, the Christ journey, is exactly that. Who had, I mean, and ultimately, what position did he take? My Father and I are one. This is who I have my allegiance to. This is my sovereign being that I align with. And in doing so, when you get through life and teachings, it will basically indicate to you that then, yes, your Father and you are one, and you are identical to your Father. And then they take the next step, is you are God. But they do that because we make the concept of God the ultimate. Okay. That no human can achieve, right? Supposedly. And that will be in contradistinction to the full evolutionary path of Christianity, if you will.
See, Donnie came back. Can you hear us?
Hello?
I don't think he can hear us.
Obviously not.
I hear you now.
Oh, you do? Okay, good. And we hear you.
Back. He's back.
So how long are the question I'd asked you is, how long are those numbers in terms of the evolutionary path, so that nobody thinks that this is a one-time shot here?
So we're looking at 4,320,000 years is one day of Brahma. A night, if you add the night in, it's 8,640,000. And if you run out Brahma's entire life of Brahma, 100 years of Brahma, that cycles 311 trillion years.
So you can have a few incarnations during that period of time, if need be.
So we did the math on that, and if there's 8 billion people, you can live every person's life 85,000 times.
Every person. To basically accomplish one life is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you got time.
Yeah. The only point I'm making is it's not a short journey. Okay. We're here. We, I think we've talked earlier, the soul indicates it needs an incarnation. It needs a little bit of further development of its own conscious choice. We're the little automaton that does the work down here, if you will, working the way to up that chart that you got on your wall. But it doesn't get done in a lifetime. But that's what we do. That's our journey that's connected with sovereignty, and it's certainly going to be connected in this age of Aquarius, and we are certainly seeing that term starting to be used now. At least I am, Donnie. You see it?
Yeah, all over the patriot community is using those words, freedom and sovereignty quite a bit. Maybe not in this exact way, but it's coming out, it's making itself more present for sure out in that world. So
when we look at the Bailey material and we deal with humanity here, but we deal with some connections with them. What you have got, the star Sirius is important. The
Pleiades.
The
Pleiades and the Great Bear. Those are the big three.
Yeah, Great Bear, the Pleiades, and there's one other star or something. Anyway, the point is that we have these connections, it appears, with our solar system, and they're relatively close to us in terms of the size of the universe and any kind of relationship we might have with them. I'm not that aware of any of those. I hear talk about them. I read information about them. And I'm not really an outer space person.
Well, I think Sirius is 444 light years away.
Which is probably not far, huh?
No, it doesn't sound far. I don't know.
Oh, I'm just saying proportionately.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I asked you to bring up a link that I had seen somewhere else, and you've got a one screen on it. And in this case, I'm probably jumping the gun. We could have more of a conversation before we go here, but let's go here. So we've got, do you have the background on that? Can you read it out if you put it up?
Yes, but I need a second because I had to restart my computer. So
Okay.
Just a second though. Should be pretty quick.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I'm not running around talking about a lot of ETs or anything like that because I'm not aware of them. If they're here, I'm not, for the most part, aware. Other people seem to have great history of that information. So can you wander through this with people? I had indicated to you that I'd seen this. You found it. But this should have something to do with the importance of sovereignty also.
yeah, so this is the second slide. The first slide didn't have a lot of information on it, but ultimately there's a lot of question about where these politicians' loyalties have lied, especially during Trump's first administration and at the start of it. But if what they're saying is that Trump was not a God-fearing man when he was first elected. He didn't start talking about God in his speeches until only after his abduction out of the White House in late 2017 by the Pleiadians. Trump had conversations about what the swamp really entails and all the reptilian, draconian shapeshifters, reptoid mankind hybrids, chimeras, serpents, and any other non-evil human evil. President Putin, who has been fighting the reptilians, Dracos, for the past 20 years, told Trump of their existence. He didn't believe him and thought he'd lost his mind. And this is the reason Trump was abducted, so as to tell and show what's really going on. Trump is now God-fearing. So that's one. This is how they're putting it out and starting to introduce people to these ideas. But if we read the blue books, we know that, I mean, I'll say it, DK has said that every world leader is rightfully a suffering savior and has been contacted in order to kind of help guide humanity to where they're going. In fact, he called by name Roosevelt a great disciple. So we have to start. I mean, we don't have to start putting these connections together that the world leaders are going to have to get on board with the plan, essentially, right, Carla?
Yes, but the majority of them, I mean, you have to know which direction is up.
Yeah.
That's a big one. And most people haven't even thought of that as having anything to do with the valuation of their life and their accomplishments and their purpose. Okay. So.
Well, and DK does talk in the books about the need to understand politics and the goings on in the world alongside the spiritual stuff. And I assume because it is what's on the lower mental planes, and that information is it does lift us up onto those levels when we start talking about it as 1+1 = 2, instead of being wrapped up in our own dream worlds, in the astral plane, and not caring about what's going on in world politics. Right.
Yeah, well, and look at what we're battling with right now. This Constitution we have is the only governing doctrine for a country that gives us our sovereign rights. Okay. In other words, you're not going to get it in England.
Right. I see what you're saying there.
You're not going to get it in Japan. You're not going to get it in China. There is no other document that has been written that governs a land mass, if you will, a country, whatever, that gives you your sovereign rights, your God-given rights, and the only thing that is meant to be in that relationship is you and your creator with this doctrine that we have. No other document governing a country has given you direct rights to your creator, and that you're going to listen to you creator before you are going to listen to whoever's in Congress, if you will, so on and so forth. They're there to govern probably socially, in terms of trying to figure out how to get along, et cetera, and help with a mass of humanity. But the real key here is this is the only document that does not obstruct and govern a secondary rulership to you. Every other governmental document does for countries. And that's a big deal. And I don't know that many people who understand that.
Yeah, this has a pretty big history, recent history, even going, with these presidents that we're familiar with, and Kennedy and him trying to expose the corruption and being taken out. And then there was another one was said to be contacted by the Arcturians or somebody, and Johnson or something, and then they did not listen to them.
Eisenhower
Didn't listen to the guidance that he was given, and just kept being perpetuated. Right?
Well, more so than that. First of all, Eisenhower had been the general that won the war, for starters. So in terms of World War II, he was the commanding general, whatever they call it, of all of the military. And so he is attributed with having won the war if it comes to the military head. And again, I'm not a military person, so I don't know that. But I was little, but I was very aware of what was going on. In fact, and so Eisenhower came in 1952. The war ended in 44 in Europe, 45 in the Eastern Theater, if you will, Japan, dropping of the bombs. That was Truman. And then Eisenhower came in 52, won the election. And I believe in 54, he was contacted and told what he needed to do with the financial setup that we had set up by that time, because Bretton Woods had occurred in 1944, the original meeting in New Hampshire, and we set up the way the money was going to flow around the planet and the whole system, which we have lived under until probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 days from now. Okay. In other words, it still functions with the fiat currency we've got out there, and evidently there'll be a shift at some point if we succeed in accomplishing and doing all of the bullet points that we need to do to conform with a current Supreme Court ruling relating to our finances. So anyway, the bottom line, going back to Eisenhower, he wouldn't change it. He said, we just set the financial stuff up. I'm not going to change it. So he did not do it. And in fact, a little side note, because I must have been 10 or 11, and he was running for his second term, and he picked Nixon as a vice president, but Eisenhower had said he would go and he would visit Russia because now we've got the Iron Curtain has come down, so on and so forth. And that was one of his campaign promises, is he would go and he would go visit with Stalin and in Russia. So I wrote a letter to the State Department and I said, look, I want to go on the trip, and I'm sure you got enough room on the plane for me so I could go too. So when he goes, that's what I want. And I got a letter back politely indicating that there probably wouldn't be room. But in the meantime, when they did go, he sent Nixon, and I didn't like Nixon anyway, so I didn't care at that point. The Libra was Eisenhower, the Capricorn was Nixon. So, and that's not a happy combination. Okay, those two to each other, and I'm the Libra, so I that was fine. But I got that letter. I never bothered to tell my parents I wrote the letter. I just wrote it and put it in the mailbox, and then I got the answer back. But anyway, that was those days. That was what was happening. Eisenhower did not do that. And from what I understand, and I'm very limited in these areas, I'm just listening to what other people have historically got the awareness of, I don't, is that a lot of the technology that was occurring probably in Europe and elsewhere on the planet that was advanced technology, Eisenhower wasn't aware of until after the war, and after he saw evidently some of this technology exposed on our landmass, probably Area 51, I think, and cut a deal to procure some of that technology, but at the cost of the expense of a small percentage of humans for experimentation in exchange, is what I've heard. So I wouldn't print this when you go out there, because it's all basic hearsay. I wasn't there, but this is what I hear. So that wasn't a nice contract either. But knowing what he knew, seeing the war, seeing the technology, seeing whatever he saw, and he probably realized that if we don't get this, we're toast. Because whoever has it will certainly defeat us. He'd already been through a nasty war. Period. So that might be not one of our better days in history. But let's go back to sovereignty. So the real question that's going to be answered is basically who has supreme power over you? Because this is the same question that you're asking in another way about taking the journey up that chart. And the reason it won't have been an issue is because when you get back into the 4th century, and they've been arguing the point, the Nestorians and the Alexandrians and the intelligences that would be have been trying to figure out during those early centuries who Christ was. What was this? How did this happen? How could this happen? They had all those questions. I've got books on copying the documentation of their meanderings back and forth, and they really couldn't answer it. They couldn't answer how you could have two people as one, or how he could have. They certainly don't have the books that DK's got, the initiation journey, because there wouldn't have been any of that. You had Christ, he's appeared, he's got his disciples, they're walking around, they're going here, they're going there, they're doing some stuff this way, they're in the Garden of Gethsemane. All of those significant things have not been passed on. So in the 4th century, they knew them. But they were ready to make this a state religion, so that the government gave it authority. Okay, so they've already recouped it, if you see what I'm saying. They are allowing it to be recognized. But they're also taking control of it as a governmental agency at that point in time. So they're going to determine, and they finally, the long and the short of the reading that I've done and the research and the argument here, and then the argument came back here, they finally just gave up and said, let's make it simple. He was born the Son of God. Mary was a virgin. And there's only one of him. And we are representing him. Because if they'd come and gone in the other direction and said, this is your journey, you are responsible to do this, and anybody can do it, because he said, you'll do greater works than I. So he already inferred it was open for everybody. They would have had no control. And they took reincarnation out of the mix also. Because if you had said, this is this wondrous journey, this man did this, it's a union of God and man, which was the argument on the Nestorian side, is that this was the union of man and God. And then said that you're going to have many lifetimes to accomplish it. They would have had no control of the people. Why would you? It's my journey. Well, if I ain't making it this time, I'll do it next time. If they thought they had the incarnations. And if it was something they had to do themselves rather than getting salvation through somebody else, that would have been a pretty hard journey to do. And anybody who was putting all this together had no idea really the journey yet that had been done. You're smiling, Donnie. What are you thinking?
Just listen. It's like, oh, so you mean to tell me I'm free? Wait.
Absolutely.
Hey, what?
Yeah. So you got it right there. So they always had to have that control, and they took it for a century. And that's what we've got. So we have never been told we got to be nice people. We got to support the church and be nice to humanity and accept when we want a war, and then we'll find a good reason. But I mean, they would have literally had no control of the people. And conversely, as far as I'm concerned, the church, the one thing they have done that is worthwhile is they have preserved those words for 2,000 years. You will do greater works than I. So when you finally got humans who had enough attention up here and enough have reached the mental plane to be able to even think about that, should have a clue of how to interpret that. Okay. So if they did nothing else, beneficial, that was worth it.
Yeah, it was not hard for them to do this because it's just natural in a sense, right? But DK calls it, or the theosophists say it's you take the kingdom by violence, and they mean you demand and take your self-appoint yourself, and you, like you say, and you take your sovereignty. You know,
Yes, and you know, the other thing is taking the kingdom by violence is you've got to start figuring out what God is an all-consuming fire. That's one of the terms for it. What are the other ones? Do you have any of some of the other ones? In other words, you're going to have to take it by violence, so to speak, because you are working with a very hefty, minor word, force field that is, what is it, Shiva? In the
just will energy. Yeah,
is the creator and the destroyer. That's who we're talking about. That's who we're talking about. And I don't want to say conquering because I don't mean it that way, but making a unification with that energy.
intense. Yeah, it's intense, I would say.
So
But
yeah,
God is spirit. You know, we worship God in spirit and truth, and God is our consuming fire. God is light. You know, it's all those. There's a lot of those sentences.
and I think we all know from studying this stuff, and Michael's Robbins' words are so adamant. If you got connected with that energy directly, it would be like putting your finger in a light socket, and it would just totally blow you out. Well, we'll say that there was a lot of current in that light socket, which not one of yours, Donnie, where it dies. But in other words, you take it by force because you make the moves that get you there. And it's your choice. And it is an upward climb. Okay. Battling through these lower realms because we're pretty much attached to a lot of substance. How is it? Do you have the words from the Blavatsky about how we basically accumulated this form, substance attached to us, and so we have a physical form?
Oh, I don't have the direct words. No, I don't.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So we've loaded on a lot of substance to this light being down here now.
Yeah, we attract it.
Yeah, we attract it and we get stuck with it, and then it's repetitive. And now we got physical forms.
Well, in that sense that you're talking about, though, I see it's like having a desk full of stuff on it, and then you really just have to get mad and just wipe the whole desk off and throw it all on the floor and light it on fire. That's how. Then a grenade on top of that, just that's
Well, it's a journey. Letting go. You're also letting go at a certain point.
yeah.
But coming right back to it again, you are going to start hearing that word sovereignty, and that's because the journey, the next level up, if you will, for wherever we are. First of all, there's probably a certain amount of cleanup on this planet at this point in time that needs to be done in terms of the quality of life that we all have and experience and have the opportunity to have. But this will be a significant next 2,500 years in the age of Aquarius for us to better understand and take a jump up, a significant jump up. And we're already starting to feel some of it. The quantum will be a big deal. The AI will be a big deal until we understand we are quantum beings. We function on quantum mechanics. That's why when you get into life and teachings and some of those beings that come down to visit, and they're talking about ordering their dinner.